Hello. Hello, welcome to my cake kitchen. I'm Gladys, and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. Happy New Year. I think, is it my first live? I can't remember. But today we're making a simple sponge cake. I have made sponge cakes over and over again, but the channel has grown a little bit, and there is an audience out here that probably wants to catch up on how to make a simple sponge. So I'm making a sponge cake for a cake that is due out tomorrow. So I thought it'd be a good chance to come back, talk about how I make one of my mini sponge cakes, and also hand you some general information, including tips and techniques on how I derive this, so that is of some use to you. I know I think a larger part of my audience is in America, and there's a lot happening there. To all of you out there that is, affected by the fires, and family members and stuff, sending my prayers and thoughts and well wishes to all of you, and I hope things settle better. We've created a safe space on this part of the internet just so that you can come, relax away from the world of adversity and atrocity. This is my safe place too. I log in back here to talk cakes, something that I am passionate about, just so that I can switch off from the minutiae of my daily life that includes motherhood, parenting, and everything else in between. So if you're catching me for the first time and you're in America, sending my love and prayers to you. For those of you in the chat, Chantilly, good morning, darling. Happy Saturday. I hope you're all well. So yeah, I'm not going to waste your time. I'm just going to dive right in. Normally for these bakes, I will undertake the bake, and then we'll wait and we'll talk long about the baking process. My day is packed with a lot of activity, so we are going to undertake the bake, and I'm going to kind of click out. And then when we're about 10 minutes before the bake finishes, we'll come back. So this live is in two parts. We'll get the bake done, then we'll come back and inspect the bake. So to start with, I have some margarine here. Margarine is the base fat. I'm going to be deriving this using the creaming method. The creaming method, simply, there are different ways to derive a cake batter depending on what cake you are undertaking, whether you are aiming for a white cake, a type of chiffon cake, a basic sponge, or the batter cake. There are just a few different ways you can derive batter for your cake. However, I am just going to be undertaking this using the creaming method, and the creaming method starts with generally mixing your sugar and butter together, creaming them in a mixer of some sort, or mixing it by hand, or using a hand mixer. The tools for deriving that depends on need, preference, and intention, really. So for that reason, I am using a stand mixer just for convenience, and I'm going to be mixing the sugar and butter together, creaming it to form some air pockets. Now that will be essential for the structure of the cake, amongst the other ingredients and processes that will be used to derive this cake. With that said, we have sugar. The intention for using sugar in baking is to basically sweeten your sugar, but sugar has a lot more functions in the baking process than just sweetening your bake. It aims to also add some sort of moisture, because it has moisture properties. That means it draws moisture from other ingredients in its environment. For that reason, it aims to also tenderize and add a sort of texture to your cake. And that's the idea of sugar in baking. I guess there is a wider conversation to be had about the real different types of sugars in baking. Look, today we're not geeking on that. If we did that, we'll be here for more than an hour, and I don't have an hour. So that's just a generalized idea of the functions of sugar in baking. And of course, we have the fat. And next with that is, where is my buttermilk? Okay, right, there is buttermilk. I use buttermilk. Some recipes will call for yogurt or milk. Yogurt or milk is okay. Yogurt or milk will add moisture. That is trying to increase the moisture quality of your cake. I tend to go for buttermilk, because buttermilk, even though it has a sort of tartness and a sourness to it when you add it to a baked good, for instance, in say chocolate or red velvet cake, it has a sort of specific function for which it is used. I just go for buttermilk here, because the quantity is so little that it makes no difference in terms of taste quality for your cake, but it is enough in terms of its quantity that it affects the texture and crumb quality in a very specific way. So that is just preference. You can just substitute this for milk or butter, same quantity. The quantity of ingredients I have here, I'll be leaving in the description box at the end of it. There is Princess over there. Hello, Prince. And Chantilly, darling. How are you, darling? I hope you are well. I don't suppose you're affected by the fires, are you? Well, let's get back to baking over here. So I have 110 mils of buttermilk, but like I said, you can replace that exactly with milk, sour cream, or yogurt. It won't yield the same exact result, but it will maintain one function, which is to enhance the moisture quality of your cake crumb. Next, we have eggs. There is something I'm going to do slightly different from the other technique that I have always applied for this particular sponge. And this is my own recipe, as in my own sponge recipe, except what I did with my sponge is that I aimed to make it adaptable. And the adaptability means that I can change it and change ingredients and swap things around without adversely affecting my outcome. So actually, one of these days, I wanted to make a specific sponge. Actually, that has been filmed. You'll see that in long form format in the Simple Classic Bakes. So if you haven't subscribed, come on, get on and subscribe to the channel. We have like baker friendly and beginner friendly recipes, and the goal of this channel is to serve as a learning resource for you out there, so that when you clock in, especially for the live sessions, you have yourself an entire class of information to assist your baking process, so when you undertake that in your own kitchen. So you're welcome. But by the way, I was undertaking this baking of a specific sponge, and something I do occasionally is, that is not customer cakes, by the way. When I'm sort of undertaking a bake for whatever reason, sometimes I have a goal to kind of see if I can test a specific technique or change something slightly, just to test for the result. And for this, even though the amount of eggs, the quantity of eggs remained the same, what I did was change the technique slightly differently. And normally for here, if you've been on this channel, for eggs, I measure the eggs. I crack them open and measure it. So you'll find that the weight of the eggs are really important to the ratio of ingredients here. So I think the egg quantity we need here is about 275, 285. And normally this is about 5 to 6 eggs, depending on what eggs you are using. Except on this occasion, instead of just cracking all the eggs and then mixing them all together, I separated the egg yolks, I think 3 of those, to add to the batter. And then I added the rest of the egg whites and the eggs later, a technique I'll be using in this particular recipe. And it yielded a more fine, softer, crumbly bake for me. Like, not crumbly as in the cake being crumbly, but the texture was so soft that 3 days in, the cake was still amazing. To the point where I gave my neighbors some of the cake and they loved it still 3 days later. So that is what I'm going to be trying today again, just so that we can yield ourselves a very light, tender sponge that you can use in your home kitchen. So if you're just logging into the chat, there is 10 of you here. There is Grace. Grace, hello. Welcome to the stream. If you're just joining us in the stream, hello and thank you for your time. What are we doing? We are trying to make a simple, delicate, freshly baked sponge from the scratch. Like I said, between all the ways you can derive a sponge, you can also use a box mix. I have nothing against a box mix. However, being able to derive a sponge from scratch is in itself a skill one has to develop. So hopefully at the end of this video, you are able to understand what it takes to make a simple sponge and be able to derive that in your own kitchen. With that said, I am just going to give this a quick clean, and we are going to then plug this in. Just move these things around. But if you're just joining us, thank you. Right, let me just move these things around, and then we're just going to dive right in. First of all, I'm going to be preheating my oven. to 170 degrees C. I will also be handing you some very specific tips on what you can do to enhance your sponge and get yourself a delicate sponge. So it doesn't end with just handing you tips and tricks on the ingredients and how technique and how I derive it. I'm also going to be telling you how I bake my cake with everything you need, so that when you land on this video, you know you will learn how to make a simple, delicate, freshly made sponge from the scratch. Delaney, darling, Delaney is our moderator on the channel. We've missed you, darling. How are you? I hope you are well, my lovely. Are you anywhere near where the fires are, Delaney? If you're not, I am so happy for you, and I'm so glad you're here today. So into that, and by the way, there is the expectation to have all your ingredients at room temperature, and of course room temperature is preferred. But for me, as you can see, the margarine is a little bit off to the side more than room temperature, and that's also by intention. I prefer for this sponge, I prefer my butter to be a little more softer, not melted, but softer than you would need it to be. And with that, I have my K-mix. We are going to just beat this, and then when this starts going, I am probably going to be quiet here doing some ingredient stuff. Bear with me, because when this starts going, it gets so loud. It's almost like talking to you means I'm going to be shouting at you, and I'm very keen to avoid that. With that said, we need some vanilla. Normally the quantity here will be 2 tablespoonfuls, but over here we pour our vanilla with a bit of love. So there you go. Don't be mad at me, but I'll leave the exact quantity in the description box for you. So let's go and do that. And I'm creaming this at 3.54, speed number 3.54 on this stand mixer here. Well, the lady in the chat is saying there's no fires for her. There's 12 inches of snow, and she's getting ready for the day. Oh, Delaney, 12 inches of snow. Well, I guess you will say boo-hoo when I tell you England is very cold. It is very cold out here, but we don't have 12 inches of snow. So it's great to have you here. Thank you for being here. I am so sorry I haven't kept in touch much. I didn't know how to contact you. Okay, I didn't. For Christmas, actually, I'm sorry. Now I'm thinking, you left me a message via email. Well, this means I was thinking about you over Christmas, because I was like, for all of you who have been supportive, I want to email you, but Christmas was super busy. Great to have you back. Happy New Year. I hope you had a great time. But whilst we're at it, let's go and sort the eggs out, okay? I'm going to sort some eggs whilst we are doing this.